Early morning on D-Day, anticipation and anxiety could be felt in the air, with all fingers crossed for a positive climate deal. With the progress or lack of in the negotiations, some environmental conservation groups decided to stage a last-minute attempt to influence decision-makers towards a positive outcome. Greenpeace, alongside Tick Tick Tick, went all out on the beachfront with a giant life ring to portray civil society throwing a lifeline to drowning delegates. With the clear message of hope, civil society argues it was equally important to have their voice and submissions as part of a climate deal.
We need action, not just talk, so we need a breakthrough. So today we were asking the question, is there hope? Hope with a question mark. In Copenhagen, they talked about Copenhagen. Obama talked about hope in 2008. Where is Obama? Where's the leadership from the U.S.? So today is about, they're not going to leave, the people are going to have to kick them in the you-know-what to get them to do something, because people are hurting and it's only going to get worse.
After much anticipation, the Cancun Agreement was finally released at the end of the two-week meeting. While it wasn't a legally binding agreement, it was nonetheless a balanced package of decisions, music to the ears of vulnerable countries, in particular the Pacific. The agreement, among other things, acknowledged on the outset that countries need to work to stay below a 2-degree temperature rise. One of the major recommendations that affect the Pacific region the most is the Green Fund to assist countries mitigate the impacts of climate change. In the meantime, a total of $30 billion in Fast Start finance until 2012 is up for grabs to support climate action in developing countries. It's the kind of funds Fiji hopes to tap into, but it needs to carefully draft adaptation projects.
Now until Durban is important. The intervening negotiation period in Bonn next year, where we will be talking on this. So we hope that by Bonn, that by Durban, COP17, the whole formula is there and everybody is able to access it. But the countries are also putting money aside in the bilateral sense, and people are accessing that. We're thankful to the government of Japan, who has already given us 60 million, and it's with the Pacific Island Fund. It's all part of that.
Lobby group and environmental conservationists, the Pacific Council of Churches, says with the money on offer, Fiji and the Pacific should look at building holistic resilience.
There's no point building a seawall when you don't have any food, when your food security is threatened. And so holistic resilience is really about having a holistic approach to climate change. And so, in other words, to say that perhaps climate change needs to move out or needs to be part of the national planning office of every country in the Pacific. It needs to become an indicator for development in our region. We need to move in that direction. So climate change needs to play a more important role.
While the outcomes at Cancun have been welcomed, authorities acknowledge that putting the concerns of the Pacific community on the table hasn't been easy at the talks.
The system itself is such that it makes it difficult for us to speak individually as a country. COP processes, we negotiate in groups. And you know, Fiji is part of the Pacific Island smaller developing states. Now that PCIDS is part of AOSIS, Alliance of Small Island Developing States. And the Alliance of Small Island Developing States is part of the G77 and China group. It is that big umbrella group, the G77, that actually negotiate on behalf of everybody, developing countries. So for us, we have to fight a battle within AOSIS, and then take the AOSIS position and fight it with the G77 members. And if we still survive, then we go in and talk to the developed countries. It's pretty difficult. It's pretty difficult. But it doesn't mean that it's impossible.
In one of the European countries, I had a chat with them, and he asked me, how many from Fiji that came? 5. And I asked them, how many of you came? 35. And what are these components of people coming? We have engineers, we have lawyers, we have doctors, we have a multidisciplinary representation of people coming in to join this negotiation team. It's quite challenging for Fiji, but I think this is the right time for Fiji to develop this this competency or this area.
That's why a recommendation has been made to government to set up a negotiating team that will be known as the Climate Change Country Team. This team will be made up of experts who will prepare Fiji's submission and take lead in negotiations.
It is vital for Fiji to have this negotiation team before any COP meeting. When we talk about the negotiation, it's a skill on its own. And there are techniques and strategies in carrying out negotiation. And for this team to be continuing involvement in ad hoc working group before any COP meeting, this is really important.
When COP was sitting, there were 29 meetings going on at the same time. 29 meetings of SABSTA or SBI, LCA, and each thematic groups. And there were 8 of us from Fiji. Five of us who are actually negotiating on behalf of Fiji. You can be drowned with confusion if you do not have a good solid instruction with a good solid idea of how to approach all negotiations. And then on top of that you have countless side events that are also going on the same time, so are also carrying interesting messages. But we need for us to identify what we really want, get people to advance that interest as much as we can.
PCC says it's crucial the Pacific enhances its presence at these global meetings by profiling itself better.
Side events are more than just about profiling what you do as an organization. Here's the opportunity for the Pacific region to really profile the region. And what we'd like to suggest in this process is to think about and to work towards a pavilion for the Pacific region. The United States has its own pavilion, European Union has its own pavilion, Caribbeans have their own pavilion. Why can't the Pacific region have its own pavilion, whereby all of the Pacific countries can come in and stage and have displays on the effects of climate change in their own particular area.
Now that the Cancun outcome has paved the way forward to the next meeting in Durban next year, there's growing concern that the Pacific must bring to the forefront the issue of resettlement. PCC says for some Pacific Island states, adaptation is no longer an option anymore, and leaders must now start talking about resettlement and consider climate refugees.
Why do we think that resettlement is a great issue for the Pacific region? Well, resettlement is the mother of all adaptations. If we are going to resettle a population, they will have to adapt. And so this is perhaps, in looking forward into the next 3 to 5 to 7 years, this might be one of the issues that needs to be on the table for the Pacific small island states and for other countries.
And that was Close Up for this week. For questions or comments on the show, do email them to closeup@fijitv.com.fj. I'm Rachna. Thank you for joining us, and buenas noches.